As part of AmeriVet Securities' Expert Speaker Series, we recently sat down with Tate Nurkin. Tate Nurkin is the CEO of OTH Intelligence Group. His research focuses on China's military modernizations, defense industry, and future military capabilities. He is a member of the World Economic Forum's Future Council on International Security. Tate, do you feel the White House is correct on its position on China?
For the most part, I do. It is clear that for the past 20 years, and really for longer than that, China has aggressively sought to steal and acquire, both through licit and illicit means, advanced technology from the United States, and actually not just the United States, but from other countries throughout the world. And not much has been done really to stop that over the years, even as our reliance on information technologies has offered another avenue for that theft through cyber theft. I don't think this challenge has been taken quite as seriously as maybe it could have been over the last couple of decades. So in that sense, I think the administration has diagnosed the problem effectively, that this is something that is now beginning to affect U.S. economic and national security and undermine our leadership in the high-tech industry. So I think that's really important. I think it's also important to sort of contextualize that within sort of a broader competition. And so I think a lot of the attention around the trade war, a lot of justification around it was really that we had this trade imbalance with China that was quite large, and of course it would be great if that imbalance were smaller. But to me, by far, the more important issue is the protection of U.S. technology, and frankly, again, our biggest trading partners and allies and partners. It's worth noting that in the last Department of Justice indictment of these two hackers who live in China and ostensibly work for the Chinese government, they'll never be indicted, of course, or they'll never be sent to the U.S. for prosecution. But in that indictment, the DOJ also said that 12 other countries were supporting it. That they had noted that 12 other countries had technology stolen by these two individuals. And so I think you're starting to see countries throughout the world sort of follow the U.S. lead on this. Maybe hope the U.S. would get there sooner, but understand now that the challenge from China from a tech threat and acquisition standpoint is actually pretty significant and is having harmful effects on national security and economic security. The final thing I'd say on that, and this is a big issue, it's a global issue, is that China doesn't always need to steal technology as China has in order to acquire it. And what we have seen is while the tech theft side is intensified and has done so for many years, China's also been much more effective in acquiring technology through illicit means. It's now a much more integrated part of the global economy and frankly of the research and development ecosystem throughout the world. And so you have many examples of China sort of establishing partnerships with Western or foreign academic institutions. For example, CETC, a Chinese state-owned enterprise in the electronics field, which has both military and commercial business interests, gave $20 million to the Technical University in Sydney, and to start a research center that looked at artificial intelligence, looked at big data analytics, quantum computing, and satellite mapping technologies, all of which, of course, have huge commercial ramifications and also are relevant to the military. And so, that's a perfectly legal and licit way for China to acquire technology and acquire research and development. Also, exporting students to study abroad, and that's been a big challenge here in the United States. Is certainly academic freedom and just the whole idea behind the academy is that we want to get as many ideas as possible. We certainly want that involvement and that engagement with people who study outside of the United States and live outside of the United States. But we have seen that there is definitely some component of that, what these students learn here in the United States, being transitioned back to China. It's worth noting that actually the person who founded the Chinese space program in the 50s was someone who had also supported the U.S. ballistic missile program here in the United States, and ended up immigrating back to China. So these are real things. You hear people talk about them, and sometimes feel like this might be an alarmist perspective that this technology is being stolen or acquired, but I would suggest that these are real things that are really happening, and it does constitute a material challenge to U.S. economic and national security.
Regarding China, how do you feel the U.S.-China trade war will impact the GDP on a short-term basis?
Yeah, I think for the U.S., there certainly is a negative impact currently, although it's muted a little bit by one of the fundamental justifications the administration has made around the trade war, which is that there wasn't enough trade to China to begin with. But clearly, the agricultural industry, high tech, and others have suffered. So it does contribute to a sort of a GDP slowdown. But I think it's probably not nearly as significant as other underlying factors, like maybe the shutdown. I think will have a more prominent impact on GDP growth in the U.S. in the short term than does the trade war. I think where it has started to hit home was in China, where the government just announced that its growth for 2018 was 6.6%, which is the lowest it's been since the financial crisis in the late 2000s. So that's a pretty strong statement, and actually, one can question even whether the growth was that high, given that Chinese data on GDP is traditionally a little bit suspect. And I'm not suggesting that the trade war is the cause of this drop in growth. There are other sort of fundamental factors around consumer confidence and debt. However, there is no doubt that the trade war has sort of amplified the effect of those structural sort of deficiencies, and particularly in the second half of 2018. So I think that in 2019, you'll see sort of a continued slowing in China. Probably more government investment in attempts to stimulate the economy through infrastructure projects and injecting money into the financial system to try and sort of mitigate the effects of both the trade war and these broader structural issues.
Tune in next week for more commentary on China by Tate Nurkin as part of the AmeriVet Securities Speaker Series.